Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the Kings Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning, the week after and the week before, as it were. Week after a great Derby weekend, week before Preakness weekend, and we'll talk a little Derby, obviously, with that in the rearview mirror. Get some thoughts from our guest a little bit later on. Ellis Star, national racing analyst for Equibase, will join us. We'll get his thoughts on the Derby, but also we looked at the two nice stakes at Belmont at Aqueduct today and more. So Ellis coming up a little bit later on. But happy to be joined by Kaitlin Free. You see her in the paddock down at Churchill, does the pregame show as well down there with some of our friends, Joe Christopher and beyond. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, we will play it in just a second. But Kaitlin had a little interview before the Derby and kind of went through her selections, and it was as though a crystal ball had appeared and really nailed it. And so I thought I got to get Kaitlin on to talk a little bit about that. Kaitlin, good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be joining you and flying 4 finds a nut every once in a while.
Yeah, it was crazy. And in fact, I'll tell the guys in the control room to fire it up. It's just about a minute and a half or so that was on Twitter before the Derby. And we can pull up the sound, guys, as well and play on.
A little bit more likely than Fierceness. I don't think he has as many chinks in his armor. I like Forever Young a good bit, surprise, with the Japanese horse, but he's a significantly different UAE Derby winner and a significantly different Japanese horse that has ever come over here. He's a very cool, calm, and collected type of a horse. He takes care of himself, and he's the type of horse that I look for as a well-rounded type of prospect for the Kentucky Derby. He's won all 5 starts. They've all been at 5 different racetracks, and he's won in spite of himself. He chased down legitimate American sprinter speed at Riyadh in the one-turn mile Saudi Derby, and then in the UAE Derby he was wide most of the way around, and he chased down a horse that was a Argentinian bred 3-year-old who's almost a 4-year-old now at this point, so he beat an older horse in that race and did so quite nicely. So I think coming into the Derby, Yoshida Yahagi has figured out how to win dirt races, not only here in America but across the world. So if the Japanese are going to win the Kentucky Derby, my bet would be that he's going to be the trainer to do it first. So I like Forever Young. I like Sierra Leone quite a bit from the inside post draw. I think he's going to be able to drop back just off the 2 horses, either to his outside or door knock on the inside, and make that one run there late in the stretch. But is he going to have enough to get there in the stretch? I don't know, but I think he's the most likely horse to hit the board. And as far as a price that I like in the race, it's Mystic Dan. He's a horse that's drawn next to Sierra Leone to his outside. He's a little bit more of a mid-pack type of a horse, but Brian Hernandez has been known as saving ground and being kind of stuck to the rail here at Churchill Downs. That tactic works in the Derby. We've seen a lot of horses come up from the inside, Mind That Bird and Rich Strike at big prices. Mystic Dan would be a far more likely winner than either of those 2 horses, but I can see Brian from post position number 3 dropping over to the rail mid-pack and making a nice run up the inside late.
All right, I'm smiling and laughing now, hearing it again. You nailed it. That was great. And again, that's courtesy of Agentes 305. I think it's a Spanish language horse racing group. And I said earlier, I was sitting next to the gentleman when we did our coverage from Gulfstream a few weeks ago for the Fountain of Youth. He was sitting right next to me in the press suite and does a nice job. So thanks to them for the video via Twitter. Great job. You nailed it. And I'm sure it had to be pleasing to put that out there for the public.
Yeah, it did. And honestly, I kind of forgot that it was floating out around there because Carlos, and I want to thank him, like you said, he does a fantastic job. We actually filmed that on Tuesday. So it had been a little while, and I had really even forgot that I had done that analysis. I said a couple of things on air and, gave lots of kudos in the stick in. We did some things with Twin Spires, but that was the one that was kind of the big hit, that interview, because it was definitely a little bit more in depth than some of the other stuff that I had done. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool and it's nice to find a good one there.
Yeah, very good. I'm gonna tell the guys in the control room just to send it to a break. I'm having a little technical difficulty here. So why don't you just go to a break for a second so we can clear that up and we'll come back. So Kaitlin, just hold on for a second, please.
Okay.
All right, our apologies. I had a little technical difficulty there. But to get back to it, I pulled up a shot of the tweet that was put out with the nice Derby analysis. And the guys can pull up the shot of the tweet there. And I highlighted down at the bottom, and then we have a shot of that as well. Down at the bottom there, if people see, we'll get a close-up of that. It was viewed 1.2 million times. And I retweeted it. I want to say Derby night. I read about it, and it was kind of like, wow, this is phenomenal. And people are still retweeting the next day and a couple of days later. Just talk a little bit overall about the reaction to that. I guess 1.2 million, we can definitely call it. It went viral. Talk a little bit about the reaction to the Derby analysis.
Like I said, it's pretty cool and it's exciting, honestly. It's really a testament to the hard work that our team does. The only me, but Joe Christopher, Tony Kalo, Kevin Kilroy, Travis Stone, Kevin Kirstein, just our entire team. It's nice to see, and Travis is getting the same viability for his call in the Kentucky Derby. It's nice to see our hard work and horse racing being streamed for really good reasons.
I'm curious. Have you been Churchill and then Turfway with our friend now Tony Kalo in the wintertime? Has it been a couple of years you've been with Churchill or longer than that?
It's been almost 3 years since I've been with Churchill. I do Turfway, and then I also do Colonial. This is going to be my second year doing Colonial. I just had my third year doing Turfway, but I started in 2021, so this is my third year with the company in general, and just kind of been rotating through those 3 tracks. And occasionally I'll do some things for Ellis. I did a little bit of that last summer, but yeah, so I've been around for about 3 years now.
Well, give us your background. How'd you become interested and involved in horse racing?
So I really don't have many ties to thoroughbred horse racing, but I kind of grew up around harness racing a little bit. I have some cousins and an uncle that drive, train, and own harness horses. So that's kind of really where my interest started. And I've always, loved horses and loved animals. And I knew in some way, some capacity, ever since I was a little kid, that I wanted to work with animals, talk about animals, or do something with them. And that was kind of really my calling in life. It started out as a kid for a long time, up until I was about 20. I wanted to be a jockey. That was what I wanted to do. I'm the right size to be a rider. I had a couple of injuries that really kind of prevented me from really being able to pursue that dream too seriously. But I went to college. I did some stuff with broadcasting, and I did some veterinary stuff. My degree in college is in equine medicine and complementary therapy. Is kind of like physical therapy and athletic training for horses. So I used that knowledge. I applied it. I've worked at a couple of other places writing and doing radio and stuff like that, and just ended up at the pinnacle of the sport in Churchill Downs.
Very good. Interesting start at harness racing. That's how I got my interest in the game as well, right up the road at Saratoga Harness. I used to go all the time, and then kind of crossed the street and got into the thoroughbreds and enjoyed both of them now as well. So interesting. Talk a little bit about, we have the stretch run here, great analysis in the Derby, but talk a little bit about your reaction to the race itself. We were talking earlier, looking back at the weekend, it was really a great weekend of racing. Highlighted, the exclamation point was kind of a historic 3-horse ding-dong finish there. Talk about your reaction to the race itself.
Oh, it was a great weekend, and just so proud of the work that Churchill Downs puts on, and just how wonderful it was, and how everything really cooperated the right way. But Nicole Russo from DRS, she and I kind of have a tradition of watching the Derby and the Oaks on the finish line together. So we were standing there, and for a split second, I thought Mystic Dan and Sierra Leone were reversed. I thought Sierra Leone was the one on the inside, and I just kind of had a little bit of a moment to react, and I was like, oh, that's Brian and Mystic Dan. He's making, the move up the inside, which is kind of Brian's patented type of move at Churchill Downs. So I knew that I could rely on him to give that horse that type of the ride, and that's really why I like the horses, because they're such a good fit for each other. But there was never a point, and I know it got really, really close there on the line between Mystic Dan, Sierra Leone, and Forever Young. There was never a point to me when they hit the finish line where I didn't think that Mystic Dan hadn't won the race. I didn't even realize it was as close as what it was.
And it was just a big weekend for Kenny McPeek and Brian Hernandez. And I had Kenny McPeek on probably, a couple months. It was the closing weekend at Fairgrounds. I had Ken on because he had some stakes horses in at Fairgrounds that day. He had some stakes horses in at Turfway that day. And we talked about all of those. And I ended the interview, and we were talking off the air, and he said, boy, we didn't talk about Torpedo Anna. I have her next week in the race at Oaklawn. And so all week long, I mentioned that to people. I said, Ken's pretty high on this horse, and Torpedo Anna wins the fantasy pretty easily. And we're going to watch the stretch run here at the Oaks. And Torpedo Anna looked great on the Friday card, winning the. I mean, I thought Friday had a lot of great performances. Ovacharge, First Mission, Idiomatic, but it was highlighted by Torpedo Anna. And again, big weekend for both McPeek and Hernandez. Give us your thoughts on the performance in the Oaks.
100%. Honestly, between the Kenny McPeek pair, the most confident one I was in was Torpedo Anna. She had wowed me in the mornings. I thought her performance in the fantasy coming in the Oaks was huge. And I believe she was always the best 2-year-old filly. Kenny brought her back pretty quickly, and she tried 2 turns for the first time. And she just got a little bit tired. She had a little bit of time off, which I think for her was a blessing in disguise. It gave her a little bit of time to mature, but I don't think there was ever a second where she probably wasn't the best of her crop. because she's just always been so talented, and she kind of has that push button speed. So do anything at bats, and I think she can go a little bit further, if asked distance wise. So she's just a really, really cool type of a horse, and there wasn't ever a point where she looked like a loser in the Kentucky Oaks. And as soon as Brian was setting up the trip that she had, I figured she was long gone by the backstretch.
Yeah, it was really a couple of big performances, highlighting 2 really nice days of racing down there at Churchill. Oh, give me your impressions. You've been at Churchill now for 3 years. It certainly is impressive looking on television, but what's the new paddock like live down there?
Oh my gosh, the paddock is amazing, and watching it come together has just been so cool. It's been interesting to just kind of really see it develop day by day and check in on it, see how much type of progression they were making with it. But to be in that paddock is just it's so neat because it just really exceeded my expectations. I thought, there's a chance that maybe we could have technical issues when we were first starting out, but the sound quality, the video quality, everything is great. The view is incredible. So it's actually really easy to work in. And, knock on wood so far, the horses have had no problems in it. And we've had nothing but good reception.
Yeah, it like I say, it looks great watching the simulcast signal. And certainly the reviews have all been very positive. So nice job down there by the folks at Churchill. And let's get to it. Let's get some of your thoughts after the big score calling the Derby triple. Let's get some thoughts today. And we'll kind of work our way back. There are 3 nice races today, highlighted by the 10th at Churchill today, the Mamselle. Nice little stakes action, turf sprinters. I think Cloudwalker for Brendan Walsh is maybe a little bit interesting in here. But I pulled up a replay of Nice as Pie, a horse that clearly you're going to be familiar with off the winter season at Turfway. And in fact, we're watching the Serena's Song stretch run where Nice as Pie completes a 4-race win streak coming into the race this afternoon. So Nice as Pie are clearly the one to beat. What are your thoughts on the Mamselle this afternoon?
Oh, she is squarely the one to beat. She was the darling of Turfway Park, and my horse of the meet. She was a perfect 4 for 4. Kelsey tried her on the dirt in the summer when she was a little bit of a younger type of a 2-year-old, and I don't know if it's not that she's a dirt horse or if it was just a little bit too soon, but she ended up, giving her some time. She brought her back in the winter at Turfway, and she has just absolutely sparkled since and done little wrong at all in her career. And, it's going to be a little bit of a test trying the turf for the first time, but I think she's going to pass that test with flying colors. She doesn't necessarily stand out hugely on paper, but she's a horse that can really overcome adversity quite easily. Adam Biscuita is a great fit for her. She's given her a little bit of a freshener coming in off of Turfway. We know how well horses coming in from Turfway handle the surfaces at Churchill Downs, whether it be the turf or the dirt. So I'm really excited to see Nice as Pie back again to the races today. And she is the horse to beat in here. There are some other interesting types of horses. Cloudwalker, you mentioned, I think Tippett is also an interesting type of horse also coming in from Turfway Park. So there's kind of a 2-pronged attack there for Brendan Walsh that I think could be a little bit tough, but Nice as Pie. She's just really exceeded all expectations, and I think she could be a grade 1 type of a horse for Kelsey Danner. So I'm just really excited for Kelsey, and I'm excited to see this filly back.
Comes in with a nice little bullet work from Turfway as well. And I will mention Wesley Ward has I'm About to Go on the outside, 2 for 2 so far. Turf sprinting in Wesley Ward, you have to consider that one as well. A little bit earlier on the card, boy, the 9th race is an optional claimer, not only is the 3 other than, but it could easily be a stakes race. The return of Hit Show in here. I put Hit Show underneath, however. Ended the season. It was a little bit disappointing. Hasn't been seen since September. I'm going to take a little pop with Classic Catch from Todd Pletcher. But what did you see in the 9th race today?
Yeah, don't blame me maybe trying to take a swing against Hit Show. I think he's going to be a pretty defined favorite in there. Brad has had very positive things to say about the sport. So on the comeback trail, they gave him a little bit of time. After a pretty busy 3-year-old season, I thought he raced huge in the Derby, and I thought, he was kind of the horse to beat there in the Belmont up in New York. But he's a nice type of a horse that, since they made some equipment changes on him, I think he's going to really, be a pretty nice part of the older male division, kind of similar to the way Kings Barnes has returned. So I don't know if today will 100% be his day. He is the horse to beat. I do have interest in Gasoline for before these hot Fletcher, Barney mentioned Fletcher, and this horse likes Churchill Downs quite a bit. And I think he's a horse that runs his best on Lasix, and this is kind of a graded stake caliber type of an allowance race. So I think Gasoline's an interesting player in there. Confidence Game, also another Derby alumni that's back in that race. But top to bottom, race number 9, like I said, you could throw a grade 3 or a grade 2 on it, and I would believe you. Yeah,
there's no question. I had written at the top of my page when I handicapped a few days ago, stakes quality bunch. And just one more look, kicking off a pick 4 will be the 8th race. It's a maiden claimer, but $100,000. So you're going to have to pull out the checkbook, but a nice full field in here. I took a shot with Trumptastic, not a shot. I think Trumptastic is going to take a lot of action. I think Peak is interesting in here. Rousset on the inside for Ellis Star. This is a fun race with a nice full field. What did you see in the 8th today?
Yeah, Peak and Trumptastic are far and away the 2 horses to beat. I've tried to get home with Trumptastic several times. So I may give him a little bit of a pass today. I'm going to look to the number 4 horse in this race. It's a first-time starter for Rudy Versailles. The Versailles barn is 2 for 3 here so far this meet. No secret that Rudy can top with first-time starters, especially, 3-year-olds and up. And this is the son of Take Charge Indy. And Take Charge Indy is 20% with 3-year-old and up first-time starters. So put that all together, and I'm definitely interested in the 4 horse Mandalorian there in that maiden claim race. But you mentioned Peak and Trumptastic. Those are the 2 of the horses that have experience that I would say are the likely types.
If only Mandalorian had run a week ago, right? May the 4th be with? Yeah. But
I know, it would have been perfect. He's a week late.
But still, we're close enough. Kaitlin, appreciate the visit. I had Tony on, Tony Kalo, last week or a couple of weeks ago, and I had pulled up a photo, and I think the guys in the control room have it, that Steve Bick tweeted out. I guess your whole group was doing some kind of a radio show at a bar or a restaurant, and they're all the familiar faces, and you listed Darren Rogers is in there, the 2 KKs, Tony, Travis is in there, Joe K, and you. And when I had Tony on, I said, I think the only one in that picture I haven't had on is Kaitlin. I have to have her on sometime. Little did I know that it would be a week or 2 later after the great call in the Kentucky Derby. So again, great job overall down there. It's fun to listen to you guys. I always say to Joe when I have him on, your pregame show to me is one of the better ones. I enjoy it. I like our best play, our best long shot, the short price we're against. I think that's a fun concept, and you guys do a great job. And once again, I will tip my cap to you on the great job last week calling the Derby triple. So keep up the good work. We appreciate the visit, and we'll talk again.
Oh, thank you so much. We work pretty hard here at Churchill Downs, no surprise. But all the guys you mentioned, including Steve Bick, who has just been hugely pivotal in my career and giving me so much good feedback and really helping me. I'm just so glad.
Yeah, excellent. Again, Kate. And we broadcast live from the backstretch up in Saratoga throughout the entire meet, and we have had Joe K in the past years. We have Travis usually every summer. You're pretty busy in the summertime, but if you make it up to Saratoga, give me a shout, and we'll have you sit in with us.
Absolutely. I'm going to plan on going up at least one weekend, so I will give you a ring.
We appreciate that. Kaitlin, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Kaitlin Free from Churchill Downs. We'll take a break. When we come back, Ellis Star, national racing analyst from Equibase. He'll take a look at the 2 New York stakes. I think he's also going to take a look at the Mamselle from Churchill. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops, my bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back. We are giving a shout to Ellis Star. We haven't made contact yet, but I'm being told by the control room that he is calling us. And I think, Ellis, I'm on the air, and I believe I hear you in my ear.
I am here.
Excellent. Appreciate it. And we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of Belmont Stakes, another race at Belmont. We'll talk about the Mamselle down at Churchill Downs. But before we do all that, first, good morning, Ellis.
Good morning, Seth.
And one thing I wanted to touch on, have it in my notes here. I wanted to get you on during Kaitlin because you're right there in the area and you're at Kaitlin every day, if not most days, if not every day. And I wanted to touch and have you handicap. And I reached out to you one morning to come on with us during the Kaitlin meet. You said, I may be doing a little substitute chart calling. I didn't know that was a thing. Talk a little bit about your chart calling experience.
Well, it's something I try and keep my hand in, and a lot of people out there don't. It's like amazing how many people. I was talking to a contest player last couple months, and people say, "Hey, I kind of have an idea," but it's different when they say calling. Sometimes they think you're talking about announcing, like Kurt Becker, and I mean, which is it's tough too, because in that case, they have to, you have to say the horses' names. As well, like Chris Griffin and everybody else that does such a great job calling around the country. Travis Stone, of course, last week. But chart calling is something I try and keep my hand in when someone's out once in a while, and occasionally I'll call a race. It's important to keep my hand in, remind myself, and all of us need to remind ourselves how important it is. But it's fun. It's fun to be up there. In most tracks we have two guys or gals or a combination, and they do all the work that goes back into everybody's PPs. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of stay busy. Some of it's kind of busy work. I mean, it's automatic, not automatic, but you have to push buttons and get the information from the tote system in, and you have to get a call or get information for the purses to enter in. It's all done pretty much manually or electronic import, but you have to quality control it. And The fun part is calling a race or taking in the call of the other caller and then entering it in the system and watching it become a chart.
Yeah, up at Saratoga in the press box, I sit right next to the Equibase chart callers, and it's interesting to watch. They go out and they stand on their little ledge live and watch the race, and then they're immediately back at the television, rewinding and going forward. And
Yep.
I think people don't you take it for granted kind of when you look at the chart, but a lot of work goes into it because you have to come up with comments for every horse in the race, and so they're pretty much full time until the next race is ready to go, looking and making notes and making the chart for the last race before the next race goes off.
Yeah, and it's also, for racing fans that are listening, and you as well, you've seen it. Even though we have all kinds of technology now with the GPS system and other things, it's still the human being is still a little better at calling, especially small margins, heads and halves and necks during a race with horses running 25 to 35 miles an hour. And it's pretty amazing when you look at it by a video later on. And occasionally it's off a little bit, but most of the time when, the guy or the gal puts in the chart that the horse is third by 4 lengths over the fourth horse, that's usually pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And it does take a human being with a lot of experience. I'm not nearly as good as them. I do it, again, about a half dozen times a year. Where I work and do some calls and take some calls and do the other stuff. But it is a very skilled job.
Yeah, I've had the Equibase guys on up at Saratoga and talking a little bit about it. I think we should probably schedule that again this summer because, as I say, I think most people just look at the chart and kind of take it for granted what goes into it. But it was interesting when you texted me back and said, I'm doing a little chart calling today. So
busy. We have a new social media person at Equibase, and I think they've already check the Equibase account, a couple of videos of our chart callers, and we're going to do more of those to let people, just like they do with getting in the announcers booth, let people feel what goes into all the things that go into making a race chart.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, before we get to today, obviously I have to go back and get some thoughts on last week. We'll take again another look at the stretch run. Mystic Dan, Sierra Leone, Forever Young. I mean, there's a million fun stories. Fierceness, that maybe isn't a fun story, but Fierceness, again, kind of a no-show, but a great ride. And when we got to look at, the overhead and whatnot later on, to see him squeeze through, it was a great ride for Brian Hernandez. And the ding-dong battle coming down the stretch with the other two, the Japanese runners over the Friday, Saturday weekend were phenomenal. Just really a capper to a fun weekend, Friday and Saturday at Churchill. But your thoughts on the Derby?
Well, it's all been said, but I'll say it in my perspective. Was so many things went right or could have gone wrong. So the perfect example, as you mentioned, is when Hernandez went to the rail and Track Phantom is actually moving off the rail a little bit. He's getting tired, and Rosario basically tries to close the hole, but Mystic Dan's body is in there, so he can't, and that's why somebody commented on Twitter yesterday that, what about that? Well, so that wasn't a foul because, first of all, as soon as Rosario knew he had no shot to close the hole, he moved off, but he did make contact. So that's one thing that could have not happened. He could have been just a second earlier. Rosario heard Mystic Dan coming up. He could have closed the hole, and then you don't know what happens. And the other thing, of course, is, as you said, that Forever Young and Sierra Leone being so far back and making those huge rallies, and Mystic Dan getting that rail trip. As far as Fierceness, I mean, I will admit, I shouldn't have used him defensively in my top 6 because I do 6. But I thought that if he got an easy lead or was able to rate third, he'd be okay. But unfortunately, he was 4 wide. That was one of the scenarios, 4 wide and not getting the lead he needed. And that was the end of it. I thought Dornock would be the one going for the front from the rail, but he never made the lead. But there was enough pace that it really hurt Fierceness because he seems to be a need the lead type for now anyway. Or if he doesn't get exactly what he wants, he just kind of quits. But it wasn't a slow pace either. And as far as the winner, like I said, it was a great trip. I mean, I respect all the handicappers. I know a few, Kaitlin Free, Matt Carruthers, that picked him. They made the case that he could get the same trip he got in the Southwest, which I could not, because it doesn't happen anymore because Cal Burrell's not riding in the Derby. But it did happen. And, kudos to Brian for doing that. And then also Torpedo Anna going wire to wire in the Oaks was something special.
And I just had Kaitlin on. I had to have her. Was that, I mean, I'm sure you've watched it. Was that phenomenal, that analysis? I mean, if you're a public handicapper and you do that in the dirt, that's at the top of the resume for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, it's a great, it's a really good thing.
Jeez, crazy.
Good for her.
And the rest of the weekend as well. I've said it a few times. To me, Friday was the great stakes action on Saturday as well. But Friday, there was some really nice performances. Overcharged, First Mission, Idiomatic, performances that were good in and of themselves, but are going to play into the rest of the year in the various divisions. Any thoughts on the entire weekend and what might have stood out to you?
Well, you said, and a lot of folks kind of say, they were all favorites. Yeah, but as you said, it's set the stage. Idiomatic being off for 5 months, coming back and running that kind of race. I mean, Overcharged, she's going to be the top of the Philly, just the distaff sprint division. Just beautiful races. First Mission's got a whole year ahead of him now. We also saw a heck of a performance. I think it was in the race after the Derby. Can't remember the horse's name. Won by 6 or 7 at 8-1. And a heck of a horse. And we're going to see, those kinds of things. So, a lot of great races. I mean, in a lot of predictability and then a lot of not. A really, really huge effort, of course, by Seize the Gray, who's going to come back in the Preakness now. For Lucas and maybe even Just Steel again. That was an incredible effort in the Pat Day Mile. And a couple others that were just phenomenal. The turf racing was great on Saturday.
Yeah, I thought it was a phenomenal couple of days of racing. Really worked out well for the racing industry as a whole, I think. All right, let's jump in and give some thoughts. You took a look at some of the New York action today, nice stakes action, but you have another one leading into the stakes action we'll take a look at. And then also the feature today at Churchill as well. And again, you can find analysis for some racing at Equibase every week from Ellis, and you can check out his Twitter feed for other spots also. But you mentioned when I texted the 2 stakes races that we'll look at Belmont are led into by race number 5. And I think the 5th at Belmont at the Big A today is a lot of fun. 6 furlongs on the grass. I went with Berletti in this race. Rick Dutrow, Michael Dubb, America's Pastime. They're a locally based ownership group that I've had on the show up at Saratoga many times. Always root for those guys. So I thought Berletti was interesting. But Devil's K, Power Attack attracted a little attention for me. Holding the line for Wesley Ward. Hey, it's a turf sprint, and it's Wesley Ward. It's a nice full field, fun race. What did you see in the 5th today, Belmont at the Big A?
Yeah, and also I didn't realize this kicks off pick 4. So I mean, I like the pick 3. I got to go look. It's race 8 now. But I like we agree. I have Berletti on top. The fact that I read jumps on for this horse is very interesting. It's 2 turf races where when he first came here with Duggan and no knocks, he just wasn't ready at that time. He had run okay on the turf before. His record of 1-1 in 8 starts and a 7-2 morning line. I think he should be higher. You'd think with a record like that on the grass. But the one race after Dutrow claimed him on March 1st, where he rallied from 4th and got up by a nose, that's the race I'm looking at as the race that makes a difference. That was at 6 on the dirt, and then he ran 7 and he ran 4th. Well, I think 6 is what he wants. And so 6 with Irad, with some pace to run at. He's got the best recent Equibase speed figure in the field at 92, and I think he's a top pick. I also went with a 9 Devils K, a reclaim by Tom Morley. Morley had him before. It's interesting. He finished 4th and 7th for Morley, and yet Morley reaches back in and takes him back for a different owner. He really woke up last time out on the dirt again. 6 on the dirt on April 13th. Dylan Davis rode him. And Davis is sticking with him for the new trainer, which is kind of unusual. Trainers usually move to other horses, or a trainer picks a different jockey, I should say. But he's got a nice shot. And he's 8, which is interesting because when he lost by a nose, he was 2-1. Essentially, a non-winner is a 3. And this is an interesting condition because it's not a straight starter, and it's kind of a non-winner is a 3 other than race. So it's interesting. He's got a nice shot. And then the 2, Marathoner, at 15-1 is really hard to pass up on this. He won at 23-1 on June 2nd of last year, so 11 months ago. at 6 on the grass at Belmont, and then now one's a 3 lifetime, which is the same level. The Devils K missed that by a nose last time out. And he's kind of run bad since, but one was a turf route, and the other 2 were straight allowance. He's overmatching those 2. This is exactly where he belongs back, and basically the now owners of 3X company. And so I'm going to use them if the race comes off the turf, and you could tell me right now, I haven't checked the weather or the changes, then I would add in 13 Looking Super, who has a win one before last, and High Heat 16, who has a win back in February.
At this point, the 11th is off the turf. The other races are on at this point, last I saw.
Great.
All right, let's now get into some of the stakes action. The Peter Pan, race number 6, Belmont at the Big A today. We're going to take a look at the stretch run. I'm going to go back a couple of starts for Antiquarian. I'm going to take a little shot with Antiquarian in here. This is Fairgrounds February 17th. And it was an undercard on a stakes day, and Todd Pletcher elects to ship this one over on a big stakes day to break the maiden. Antiquarian's going to be the number 6 horse here. So obviously that they elected to come over on a big day and break the maiden, away from their home base in the wintertime. I think they thought they had something. They follow up with the Louisiana Derby. Didn't fare quite as well there. But I think this horse is going to be interesting this afternoon. But the Wine Steward, nice little New York bred, could be very tough. Deterministic, the Wood winner or the Gotham winner who faltered in the Wood. We'll see if that one can rebound. Unique Insight for Chad Brown. It's Chad and Klarovich. Field of 8 scheduled, and I think it's an interesting field. Well, I say that Tuscan Gold, they have said they're going to aim for the Preakness with Tuscan Gold for Chad Brown. So what are your thoughts in the Peter Pan this afternoon?
Yeah, I heard Tuscan Gold. I heard Lonesome Boy might scratch, and it's too bad because I was going to take a nice stand against Tuscan Gold. I like the horses that have run 9 furlongs, and Unique Insight's the top of those. 2 for 4, 2 for 2 at 9 furlongs, a maiden and a 1X, fast and sloppy, both Cancel. Cancel's riding back. He's a gun runner, so he can even get 10 out of a Spacetown mare. I think he's going to get the lead here and be very tough. They can rate him down. When the first one, he went 50-115, which is ridiculous. Or he shot off the pace, I should say. But the last time he went 47-2 and 111-1, and he just wired the field. He fits perfectly, really, because this, except for the stakes runners, there's more like a non-winners of 2 other than allowance. With the scratch, you're not going to get 8-1, more like 3 probably. But I like him a lot. And the other one I like is Native Lands, who's 12-1 morning line for a Riley Mott shipping out of Keeneland. Again, a double winner, a 1.125 at Oak Lawn, breaking his maiden, rallying for 10th, and winning by 6. And that is just a visually impressive burst of speed to go from 10th to 3rd on the turn, 3rd of length back at the 8th pole, and then to just blast off. And then the mile at 16th at Keeneland. Now, in terms of how fast they ran, I'm looking at both Equibase and Fire, but the Equibase figures are really solid here. 97 for Native Land off his Keeneland allowance win. 96 for Unique Insight off his allowance win at 9 furlongs. And if Tuscan Gold was in, his Louisiana Derby 3rd was a 96. The Wine Steward Lexington was a 107, which is really fast. Before that last fall, 97. So I'm going to go 3 deep here. I'm going to use Unique Insight, Native Land, and the Wine Steward. I'm using him defensively because he's done nothing wrong. 3 wins, 2 seconds. Both seconds beaten less than a length. Vino Rosso hasn't had many who have to go 9 furlongs, but they should be able to, considering he won at 10. So I'm going 2, 3, 8 here in doubles and pick 3s. And Antiquarian, I can't argue with the Pletcher. These other horse protective 8-1, 6-1 morning line. Again, they're going to get bet down. I've noticed Deterministic because, it was both one-turn races, the maiden and the Gotham, when you've got all this good 2-turn form on so many other horses in this race.
I had some notes next to Native Land. I'm interested in him. I said earlier on the handicapping show, I like horses this time of year as Oaklawn wraps up and they move to other venues. And this horse kind of proved that with the win at Oaklawn and then followed up with a win at Keeneland. And if the Native Land's a price, I probably will back up a little bit there. All right, 7th race at Belmont at the Big A is the Man of War Grade 2 event, 1 3/8 on the grass. And I pulled up a replay of the Canadian International last October up at Woodbine. The number 4 will be Nation's Pride. Clearly, the Appleby runner is the horse to beat off races like this. Now, when last seen, it kind of flopped a little bit in Bahrain back in November, but comes back for the seasonal debut here in North America. I'm taking a little pop with Ohana Honor for West Point Thoroughbreds and Shug. I thought that one could be interesting off the nice win at Keeneland last time. But what did you see in the Man of War?
Well, I wouldn't talk for Ohana Honor, but Nation's Pride, the layoff doesn't concern me because he won in April of 2022 off a short layoff, but then he won off a 3-month layoff in February of last year when he won the Dubai Millennium. He won the Group 1 in Germany off a 4-month layoff, and then he won in October off a 3-month layoff. And Appleby's just so dangerous. I don't have my stat in front of me, but he's like 28 for 70 in Grade 1 stakes in the U.S. with like 55 seconds, first and second. Just really tough. The Nation's Pride fires. He's not proven at 11, but he's run 10 really well, and he run at 12. He won the Jockey Club and the Jockey Club Derby Invitational in the fall of 2022. That way, he's tough. So on one of the tickets, by the way, I don't pick threes. I'm going to single him. On the other, I'm going to go a little deeper. I'm going to use the 2 Cortege for Clement. That was a really nice U.S. debut in the Pan American. His numbers back in his time for numbers, by the way, 112, 112, 112 last year, even though he did win second, third, and third in important group races. Those aren't too bad. I mean, Nation's Prize 124, 122, 123. But I expect Cortege to move up a lot. You were talking already about the Dove folks, so Dove and West Point here. Also, West Point owns Ohana Honor, as you mentioned. But I think second off the left, he's going to improve a lot, and he's got a nice big kick, and he fits here off the Grade 2 Pan American win. And the other I'm going to use is the 8 Silver Knot, the other Appleby. It's very interesting because he's been really running it only in the U.S. He's not one that's come back and forth. But his race last month in the Elkhorn at 12 furlong really showed me he's got it. He's just on the lead. Rocket and Roll might go is my feeling in here. And I think there's another one that might. Oh, and So High. And that puts Silver Knot in third early, which means he gets first run on the pace setters. Nation's Pride will probably be fourth. And the other one's coming from further back, Cortege. But I'm going to use 2, 8, and 9 here. I certainly could make the case, though, especially for exactas on the bottom. And this is on one of my blogs. If people go to my Twitter account, I can make the case Harry Hood, the 4, who just beat back Cortege Nose, is ridiculous. 15-1, can run second again, as can Tawny Port, who was another neck back in that race. So I wouldn't argue with anybody that liked those two. And even Ohana Honor, you mentioned, another horse that might go for the lead, but I think if he sees Rocket and Roll and So High going, Carmouche might take back because he ran really well in the Theo Ponte last fall off the pace.
All right, there are some thoughts in New York. Nice stakes action down at Belmont at the Big A this afternoon. We'll shift our attention and get some of your thoughts. We just had Kaitlin Free on, and we talked a little bit about the Mamzelle, and I said I like Cloud Walker. You know, she's at Turfway all winter long, and we looked at the stretch run of the Serena Song, Nice as Pie, coming in with the 4-race win streak. Cloud Walker, to me, is very interesting, and so I did want to pull up the replay going back to October at Keeneland. Number 10 will be Cloud Walker, getting it done in the career debut. The seasonal debut this year was a 3rd-place finish, but again, this was the career debut, and I think showed some promise for Cloud Walker. I'm going to go in that direction in the Mamzelle, although the horse to beat probably is Nice as Pie. What did you see in the Churchill feature?
So on this blog, and I did one of the blogs people can get from my Twitter feed. I make fair odds of Cloud Walker and Nice as Pie is 5-2, and Nice as Pie opens at 9-5. Cloud Walker 8-1. She'll get that a little bit, but I went and watched that race at Keeneland. It was much better than it looks. And again, talking about chart callers, you look at the short comment and it makes you look at the long comment of the video. That just tells you everything. Short comment really is helpful, and the chart callers are great in this respect. It says bumped, stopped, inside, weighted, ran on. So you see weighted. So you go look at the video. Well, I'll be a little more evocative about what weighted was. She angled into a great spot. She got blocked. She had to be held up. She got blocked again, and she got a little bit of room late and finished very well, rallying from 5th to 3rd, from 3 legs back to a length after the winner got away. That's a really, really good race. I mean, that weighted is exact. Held up, weighted, the same thing. She held up. With any kind of luck here, she's going to get paced for sure. I think let them watch On the Rail has to go. I think Twirling Queen has been first or second at the half mile most of her races. She's going. Nikki Neindorf just wired the field. I'm About to Go just wired. Actually, both her races are wired. She's the fastest looks like. And don't forget they're running 14 here, so we don't have we have also eligibles, but they're 15 to 18. So Rhapsody, the 13, is also a horse that looks like it needs the lead type. And then Tipsy Tammy and Moonlit Lady AEs may as well. So you've got at least 4 needs the lead types. Cloudwalker's going to get a fantastic trip under Torres, who rode that race, one race on Derby Day, the stakes race later in the card with a horse named Gun Pilot, I think. Just fantastically well. Or was it Seize the Gray? But anyway, just fantastically well. The nicest buy, of course, not defensively. I mean, there's nothing wrong with her. She should win. She got a big workout. She's just a really nice sprinter. But I think they might close the same, and Cloudwalker could get up by a nose, which would be good. I'm also going to use the 10 Twirl Around, who opens at 12 to 1. I can't resist that. Coming off a second in the same race, she was in front of Cloudwalker, who had trouble. But you can't say that Cloudwalker, who we know is going to be 5 to 1, and Twirl Around opens at 12. She shouldn't be 2.5 times the odds, considering she finished in front of her, and she gets Jose Ortiz, who's sticking around Kentucky and she's doing really, really well. And then I'm going to throw in the 12 I'm About to Go because it's Ward, and even though she is one of the speed parts, she could be fast enough to clear. And Tyler Gaffleone picked I'm About to Go over both Twirl Around and over Parola Sakura. So 5, 2, 10, 12 I'm using in this race. A couple win bets and some exactas.
I am 5, 2, 12, 8. So we'll see. You've got the 10. I've got the 8 in the mix.
Let's make it 5-horse boxes. It'll be fun.
That was going through my head, certainly. And I think we may get a couple of prices that will warrant that. And while you were talking, Ellis, I looked up because it's worth remembering the name. We talked about this horse last week on the Sunday show. The winner in that race after the Derby, Raging Torrent. And folks should also remember on the undercard, Mind Frame also looked good. There'll be a couple to watch as the year progresses.
Raging Torrent, thank you. Yeah, big winner, bright future.
Yeah, no question about it. Ellis, as always, we appreciate the visit and the conversation. Glad to get you in the mix and some thoughts for this afternoon, some thoughts on last week. Again, we tell people to swing by your Twitter feed for more info as well and check out your selections weekly, the race of the week at Equibase also. Appreciate the conversation. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Seth. Everybody have a great day. Make some money.
That's what we like. Ellis Star, National Racing Analyst for Equibase. All right, before I wrap up, let me just tout that it has been announced on Twitter. And yesterday, Kenny McPeak said he was going to make a decision today, and it looks like the decision at this point is Preakness for Mystic Dan, which is good news for the horse racing industry. We'll see how it works out next week, and potentially very good news for those of us up here rooting for the big Belmont Stakes at Saratoga weekend. I mean, if Mystic Dan wins next week, all bets are off. It's going to be insane. Now, attendance is capped, but it's going to be a crazy 3 weeks leading into a potential Triple Crown. So I'm rooting for him, certainly. We'll see how the rest of the field shakes out. Again, Tuscan Gold will scratch from, it has been reported, will scratch from the Peter Pan today to opt for the Preakness. I read that Copper Tax, who won the Tessio a few weeks ago, they came out of that kind of not sure whether they would proceed to the Preakness, but I read that he's a possible, they had a possible field out within the last day or so. And it was not a field of world beaters, obviously, given that a lot of all, other than Mystic Dan, of the Derby runners are electing to kind of stay home. Seize the Gray, again, the Pat Day Mile winner, may opt for the coach. So we'll see how it works out. But again, it was, I think, positive news that Mystic Dan is electing to go. Tyler Gaffleone fined. He met with the Kentucky stewards. He was fined $2,500 for the situation in the Kentucky Derby. They talked about him reaching over I'm just looking here. The article by Dave Grenig talking about the fine. Nearing the wire, Gaffleone put his left hand on Forever Young, seemingly in an attempt to create some space so he could use his left-handed stick. I thought there were a couple of pictures where it actually looked like his stick got caught in the bridle or in some of the leather from Forever Young, and to me, he was kind of looking to get out, but looking to get that out. But he did reach over, and so they fined him, but no suspension. And again, my opinion, I don't think is different than many people. Stewards should have, lit up the board with the inquiry sign, I think, and. They put out a statement that said, hey, we look after every race. We reviewed. Well, but in that situation, let the betting public know, the public at large know, you're looking. Put up the inquiry sign. And there was a nice article by Frank Angst, and I will tout you to go find that on the Blood Horse website. What's going on here, not seeing the light? And he makes the case they should have put it up. His last three paragraphs, because the Kentucky stewards often rely on objections as their cue, this results in inconsistent enforcement and even benefits connections who understand, quote unquote, the lay of the land. That should not be the case. Riders should ride. Stewards need to take the lead on calls, and they need to let the public know they are taking the lead. In short, they needed to turn on the inquiry sign. So again, that's a Frank Angst article from the Blood Horse. You can go look that up. Worth reading. Short article, but it makes good points as far as the situation last week in the Derby and the stewards. Now, me, I kind of thought it was 50-50. I don't know whether if I was a steward, I would have done anything. And don't forget, it wasn't going to affect the winner. It would have affected second and third. Now, that said, purse money for the connections is significant, second and third in the Derby. And also, it would have made a difference for a lot of bettors with the amount of money that is bet on the Kentucky Derby. I realize that. I'm just saying my look, I don't know whether I would have done much. I thought it was 50-50. Sierra Leone, you can make the argument, was a little more at fault. But as win, lose, or draw, there was no change in the situation. I will mention, I don't know whether I mentioned it yet. I have Howard Kravitz on every once in a while, who does the HHH Racing podcast, and they do a nice job, Howard and his team. And I think the last time he was on with me, he mentioned this. Last November, I think it was, Howard, on behalf of his podcast team, everybody had a little share of it, but he put $1,000 in the future pool in Vegas on Sierra Leone at 150 to 1. So that much cost them $150,000. Oh, and they did a podcast where they kind of lamented on it earlier this week. But oof, you talk about a rough beat. That group certainly had it. And I mean, Howard does a great racing podcast, and now he pops around and shows up at these big events. He's a good contest player, but in his profession, he's a high school teacher, and $150K plus the rest of the team. It was certainly a rough beat for that group, but at least it demonstrates some pretty good handicapping to suss that one out months before and have the shot at 150,000. All right, I better wrap it up because with the earlier post time at Belmont at Aqueduct today, I see they're showing the flag, so they'll be started sooner rather than later. But let me remind you, the Preakness Syndicate entry is now open. The Preakness Syndicate, it's a $25 buy-in. 40 people will be on the team. That's $1,000. Capital OTB pops in a bonus $500. So the syndicate team will have $1,500. A couple of plays, Preakness Day. The game plan is to allow you to get in for a whale-sized ticket for a reasonable amount of money and hopefully really get a whale-sized result. So again, go to capitalotb.com, click on the promotions link at the top of the page. Look for this graphic. Click on that, and there's an entry form. Entries are now open for your shot at the Preakness Day Syndicate. Today here at the Clubhouse Racebook, $100 Play the Board contest. We'd love to have you swing on by and join us here for the Play the Board contest this afternoon. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Hey, that's the same location that you can stop by and enjoy Belmont Stakes Day right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. If you're not going to head up the Northway and be at Saratoga Live, you can come here and enjoy all the action at the Racebook. $10 gets you a reserved seat, covers your admission, souvenir program, commemorative glass, all of that for your $10 reservation price. So stop in soon and reserve your seat for Belmont Stakes Day right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. All right, Seth Merrow, Racing Across America. Fun morning. Again, Kaitlin Free with just a crazy good analysis of the Derby that appeared on Twitter last week and got all kinds of social media buzz, deservedly so. So we appreciate her visiting this morning, and always appreciate the thoughts from Ellis Star as well. Hopefully we tossed out some good ideas. We'll try to continue to do that in about an hour or so when we kick off OTB Live for a Saturday afternoon. I'm going to take a look at some New York racing and some Churchill this afternoon, but we'll have plenty more action on the network as well. And again, it looks like the pregame for NYRA probably right around the corner, so I'll wrap it up for Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Again, thanks for tuning in. Seth Merrow from Racing Across America saying good luck this afternoon. Tune back in about an hour or so for OTB Live. We'll see you then. We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Full Off Track Betting.